Hey everyone! Welcome to this beginner-friendly tutorial on how to create pivot tables in Microsoft Excel. If you've ever found yourself overwhelmed by large sets of data and wished there was an easier way to make sense of it all, you're in the right place. Let's make this clearer with an example. Imagine you have a massive data set that records sales for different products across various regions, including categories and quantities sold spanning over several months. We're talking about thousands of rows of data. Here's a sneak peek. We have columns for the date of sale, the product sold, the category it belongs to, the region where it was sold, the quantity sold, and the total sales amount. Now, if you wanted to quickly find insights like which product category is performing best in each region, or track monthly sales trends, manually analyzing this huge data set would be incredibly time-consuming. This is where pivot tables come to the rescue. They can summarize and analyze this large volume of data in just a few clicks, giving you valuable insights without writing any complex formulas. In this video, I'll guide you through creating and customizing pivot tables using this large dataset, even if you're completely new to Excel. By the end, you'll have the skills to turn big data into actionable insights. So grab a cup of coffee, open up Excel, and let's dive into the world of pivot tables. I'll start by clicking on any cell within our dataset. This is a quick way to select the data range because Excel automatically recognizes the entire data block around the cell. With a cell in the data range selected, I'll go to the Insert tab on the ribbon at the top of Excel and then click on Pivot Table. When we do this, a dialog box pops up, and you'll see that Excel has automatically filled in the range for us. It recognizes the entire block of data around the cell we clicked, which is handy. However, there's a small issue with this approach. If we later add more rows of data to this range, the pivot table won't automatically include them because it's referencing a fixed range of cells. This means that every time we add new data, we'll need to manually update the range for the pivot table, which can be a hassle. Let's cancel this dialog for now because I want to show you a better way to do this. Instead of working with a fixed range, we can convert our data into an Excel table. This is recommended because an Excel table automatically expands to include any new data you add, ensuring that our pivot table stays up to date without any extra work. So let's convert our dataset into a table. To do this, first, make sure you're still clicked somewhere inside your dataset. Then, go to the Insert tab on the ribbon and select Table. A dialog box will appear asking you to confirm the data range. Since we clicked within our dataset, Excel should have selected the entire range automatically. There's also an option to confirm that your table has headers. Make sure this box is checked because our dataset does have headers. Once everything looks good, click OK. Now that we've converted our dataset into an Excel table, you'll notice it has a default table style with alternating row colors and filter buttons on each column header. This helps visually distinguish the data, but if you prefer a cleaner look, you can remove the alternating lines. To do this, go to the Table Design tab that appears at the top of Excel when your table is selected. Here, you'll see a variety of table styles. Simply choose None from the styles to remove the alternating colors. This will keep the table functionality while giving it a more basic look. One more thing I like to do after converting data into a table is to rename the table to something more meaningful. By default, Excel assigns a generic name like Table 1. However, giving it a specific name makes it easier to identify later, especially if you work with multiple tables. To rename the table, with any cell in the table selected, go to the Table Design tab, and on the left side of the ribbon, you'll see a field labeled Table Name. Here, I'll change it from Table 1 to something more descriptive, like Sales Data. This way, I can easily recognize it when working with multiple tables or when creating pivot tables. With our data now formatted as a table and appropriately named, let's go ahead and start the process of creating the pivot table. I'll select any cell within our newly named table, go back to the Insert tab, and click on Pivot Table. This time, when the dialog box appears, you'll notice it says Sales Data instead of a fixed cell range. This means that our pivot table is now linked to the entire table, and any future updates or additions to this table will automatically be included in the pivot table. Now, if we were to finish this process, we'd select New Worksheet and click OK. Excel would then create a blank pivot table in a new worksheet where we'd see the pivot table field list on the right side of the screen. This is where you can start dragging and dropping fields to build your pivot table, summarizing and analyzing your data in various ways. However, I won't complete this process just yet because I want to show you an even easier way to create a pivot table using Excel's recommended pivot tables feature. This feature is perfect if you're new to pivot tables and want a quick and simple way to get started. So let's take a look at how that works next. This option can be especially helpful if you're new to pivot tables or if you're not quite sure how to structure your data for analysis. To use the recommended pivot tables feature, start by clicking on any cell within your data range, since we've already converted our data into a table and renamed it to sales data. This will work seamlessly. Now, go to the Insert tab on the ribbon, just like we did before. But instead of clicking on Pivot Table, this time click on Recommended Pivot Tables. Excel will analyze your data and open a dialog box with several different pivot table summaries that it thinks might be useful for you. This is a great starting point because it can give you some ideas on how to summarize and analyze your data without you needing to decide on the layout yourself. You'll see a list of recommended pivot table layouts on the left side, and as you click through them, you'll see a preview on the right. Let's scroll through the options, and you'll notice that one of the recommendations is Sum of Sales by Region. This summary will show the total sales amount for each region, giving us a quick look at how our sales are distributed geographically. This is a great example to start with because it's a common way to break down sales data. I'll select Sum of Sales by Region from the list and click OK. Excel will then automatically create the pivot table for us in a new worksheet. As you can see, it has already laid out the data by region and summed up the sales for each one, saving us the steps of manually dragging fields into the rows and values areas. And most interestingly, I didn't have to write formulas to do this. Using this feature is a great way to explore different ways of summarizing your data, and it can help you discover patterns or insights you might not have thought of on your own. Now that we've used the Recommended Pivot Tables feature to quickly create our Sum of Sales by Region summary, let's dive into customizing this pivot table to extract even more insights. Customizing a pivot table allows you to shape your data in a way that's most meaningful for your analysis. First, let's take a closer look at our current pivot table. We can see that Excel has automatically placed the Region field in the Rows area and the Sales field in the Values area, giving us a nice summary of total sales by region. But what if we want to add more layers to this analysis? For example, we might want to see how sales are distributed across different products within each region. To do this, we'll go to the Pivot Table field list on the right side of the screen. Here, you'll see all the fields from our dataset. Let's add another layer by dragging the Product field into the Rows area just below Region. Now, watch what happens to our pivot table. It has expanded to show a breakdown of sales not just by region, but also by each product within those regions. This gives us a more detailed view, helping us identify which products are driving sales in each area. Next, let's say we want to see the average sales amount instead of the total sales for each region and product. To change the summary calculation, click on the drop-down arrow next to Sum of Sales in the Values area and select Value Field Settings. Here, we have various options like Sum, Count, Average, and more. Let's choose Average and click OK. Now, our pivot table updates to show the average sales amount for each product in each region, giving us a different perspective on the data. Customizing the layout and appearance of the pivot table is also important for making the data more readable. For instance, you can sort the data to highlight top-performing regions or products. Start by clicking the drop-down arrow next to Row Labels. Then, select More Sort options from the menu. This will bring up the Sort dialog box. Here, choose Descending, and in the drop-down below that, pick Average of Sales as the field to sort by. You'll see a summary at the bottom confirming it's sorting by average of sales in descending order. Once you're happy with the settings, click OK. And Excel will sort the regions, putting the ones with the highest average sales right at the top. You can also apply filters to focus on specific subsets of data. Let's say you only want to focus on a specific region instead of looking at all the data. To do this, you can add a filter to your pivot table. Start by dragging the region field from the pivot table field list and dropping it into the filters area. Once you do this, a filter drop-down will appear just above your pivot table. Click on this drop-down, and you'll see a list of all the regions. You can select a single region, such as North, or even multiple regions by checking their boxes. Then click OK to filter data based on only the selected region or regions. Another customization option is changing the design and style of your pivot table to make it more visually appealing. Start by clicking anywhere inside your pivot table. This will bring up two new tabs at the top of your Excel ribbon: Pivot Table Analyze and Design. To change the style, click on the Design tab. Here, you'll see a gallery of different table styles with various colors and layouts. You can hover over the options to see a live preview of how they'll look on your table. Once you find one you like, simply click on it to apply the style. You can also adjust the layout from this tab, such as adding banded rows or columns to make the table easier to read. These customizations not only make your table look better, but also help you interpret the data more clearly at a glance. By customizing your pivot table like this, you can dig deeper into your data and uncover insights that are tailored to your specific needs. Now that we've customized our pivot table, let's take it a step further by adding slicers and charts to make our data more interactive and visually engaging. Slicers are like visual filters that allow you to quickly filter data in your pivot table with just a click. These tools are great for quickly filtering your data and creating compelling visual summaries. Let's add a slicer to filter our data by region. Start by clicking anywhere inside your pivot table. This activates the Pivot Table Analyze tab in the ribbon. In the Pivot Table Analyze tab, look for the Insert Slicer button and click it. A dialog box will appear showing all the fields in your dataset. Select Region and click OK. You'll now see a slicer appear on your worksheet. It's a small, interactive box with all the regions listed as buttons. To filter your data, simply click on a region in the slicer, and your pivot table will update instantly to show data only for that region. You can also hold down the Control key to select multiple regions. You can move and resize the slicer to place it where it works best for your report. Slicers are a great way to make your pivot table more user-friendly, especially when presenting data to others. Next, let's add a chart to visualize our data. Charts make it easier to see trends and compare values at a glance. Click anywhere inside your pivot table again and go back to the Pivot Table Analyze tab. Under the Tools section, click on the Pivot Chart button, which opens a dialog box for selecting the type of chart you want to create. For this example, let's choose a column chart, which works well for comparing sales across regions. Select it and click OK. Excel will automatically insert the chart onto your worksheet. It's linked to your pivot table, so any changes you make to the table will automatically update the chart as well. Once you've added a pivot chart, you can customize it to make it more visually appealing and tailored to your needs. Start by clicking on the chart itself. When you do, you'll notice two new tabs appear at the top of the ribbon: Chart Design and Format. In the Chart Design tab, you can rename the chart title to something that better reflects the data you're presenting. Simply click on the title directly, or use the options in the ribbon to type in a new one. If you decide a different type of chart would work better, you can also change it easily by right-clicking and selecting Change Chart Type, then choose a new one from the options. You'll also see a variety of chart styles in the ribbon that offer different colors and layouts. You can hover over these styles to preview them, and once you find one that looks good, just click to apply it. Now, here's where things get really exciting. Slicers and charts work together seamlessly. Let's say you've added a slicer to your pivot table. When you use the slicer to filter the data, say by selecting the North region, the pivot chart will update instantly to reflect only the data for that region. If you choose multiple regions, the chart adjusts dynamically to display the combined data for those regions. This interaction between slicers and charts allows you to create an interactive dashboard where you can explore and analyze your data in real time, making it incredibly useful for presentations or quick insights. With these customizations and the interactivity of slicers and charts, your pivot table becomes much more than just a table. It transforms into a powerful visual tool for data analysis. All right, and that wraps up our beginner-friendly tutorial on pivot tables in Microsoft Excel. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover next, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.